Here are some famous cuneiform texts. The Epic of Gilgamesh is one of the oldest known works of literature, originating from ancient Mesopotamia, specifically from Sumerian and Akkadian traditions. It tells the story of Gilgamesh, the legendary king of Uruk, and his adventures and quests for immortality. The epic opens by describing Gilgamesh, the powerful and arrogant king of Uruk, as 2/3 divine and 1/3 mortal, endowed with great physical strength and intellect. His oppression of the people of Uruk leads them to pray to the gods for help. To humble Gilgamesh, the gods create Enkidu, a wild man living among animals. Enkidu is eventually civilized through interactions with a prostitute, Shamhat, and introduced to civilization. He learns about Gilgamesh's abuses and decides to confront him. When Enkidu meets Gilgamesh, they initially engage in a fierce battle, but eventually, they recognize each other's strength and become fast friends. One of their most famous quests is the journey to the cedar forest to confront and slay the monster Humbaba, guardian of the forest. Despite warnings from the elders and the goddess Ishtar, Gilgamesh and Enkidu proceed with their quest. They defeat Humbaba but incur the wrath of the gods in the process. Despite warnings from the wise elders and the goddess Ishtar, Gilgamesh and Enkidu proceed with their quest. They are aided by the sun god Shamash, who provides them with weapons and guidance. In the battle against Humbaba, Gilgamesh displays courage and cunning, while Enkidu demonstrates loyalty and strength. After their victory, Ishtar offers herself to Gilgamesh as a bride, but he rejects her, citing her cruel treatment of her former lovers. In retaliation, Ishtar sends the bull of heaven to punish Gilgamesh and Enkidu. They manage to slay the bull, but Enkidu is mortally wounded in the process. Enkidu's death plunges Gilgamesh into despair and fear of his own mortality. He embarks on a quest to find the secret of eternal life, seeking counsel from the immortal Unapishtim, who survived a great flood and was granted immortality by the gods. Unapishtim tells Gilgamesh the story of the flood and offers him a chance at immortality through a test of endurance. However, Gilgamesh fails the test, realizing that immortality is not meant for mortals. Instead, he learns to accept his mortality and returns to Uruk, where he becomes a wise and just king, leaving a lasting legacy. Back in Uruk, Gilgamesh reflects on his mortality and his legacy, acknowledging the importance of leaving a lasting impact through his deeds and accomplishments. He resolves to be a wise and just king, focusing on the well-being of his people and the prosperity of his city. The Epic of Gilgamesh explores themes of friendship, mortality, the search for meaning, and the inevitability of death. It has influenced countless works of literature and continues to be studied for its profound insights into the human condition. The Enuma Elish, also known as the Babylonian creation myth, is an ancient Mesopotamian epic that recounts the origins of the universe and the rise of the Babylonian pantheon of gods. The text was written in Akkadian and is believed to have been composed around the 18th century BCE. The epic begins with the primordial waters of chaos, represented by the god Apsu and the goddess Tiamat, mingling together. From this chaos, the gods emerge, with Apsu and Tiamat giving birth to the first generation of deities. However, these early gods become noisy and disruptive, disturbing the peace of Apsu and Tiamat. In frustration, Apsu plans to destroy the younger gods, but his plot is foiled by the god Ea, Enki, who kills Apsu in self-defense. Out of Apsu's remains, Ea creates his home. Tiamat, enraged by the death of her consort, seeks revenge and creates an army of monsters to wage war against the younger gods. The chief god Marduk, son of Ea, volunteers to confront Tiamat and her forces. In exchange for victory, the other gods promise to make Marduk their supreme ruler. Marduk accepts and battles Tiamat, ultimately defeating her by trapping her and splitting her into two halves to create the heavens and the earth. Marduk then organizes the cosmos, creating the stars, planets, and constellations. He appoints the other gods to their respective roles and establishes order and harmony in the universe. As a reward for his victory, the other gods bestow upon Marduk 50 names and declare him the king of the gods. The Enuma Elish reflects the cosmological beliefs of ancient Mesopotamian society, emphasizing the struggle between order and chaos, the divine hierarchy, and the divine right of kingship. It also serves as a justification for the supremacy of the Babylonian gods and the rule of the Babylonian kings, with Marduk as their patron deity. The Atra-Hasis epic is an ancient Mesopotamian myth that contains elements similar to the biblical story of Noah's Ark. It is written in Akkadian and dates back to the early 2nd millennium BCE. The tale begins with the gods creating humans to serve as their labor force, but the humans multiply rapidly and become noisy and burdensome. In response, the god Enlil decides to send a flood to wipe out humanity and silence their clamor. However, the god Enki warns one of his followers, Atra-Hasis, also known as Zusudra or Unapishtim in other versions of the flood myth, about the impending disaster. Enki instructs Atra-Hasis to build a large boat, similar to an ark, and to take aboard his family, along with representatives of each species of animal, to ensure their survival. As the floodwaters rise, Atra-Hasis and his companions take refuge in the boat and wait out the deluge. After the flood subsides, they emerge and offer sacrifices to the gods. Enlil is initially furious that some humans have survived, but Enki persuades him to show mercy and allow humanity to continue. In the end, Atra-Hasis and his family are granted immortality, and he becomes known as the wise, or clever, man who saved humanity from destruction. The Atra-Hasis epic shares striking similarities with other flood myths from ancient cultures, including the biblical story of Noah's Ark found in the book of Genesis. These similarities suggest a common cultural heritage and the universal human experience of grappling with the forces of nature and the fragility of human existence. Here's the Enki and Ninmah myth. The myth begins with Enki, the god of wisdom and fresh water, and Ninmah, the goddess of creation and childbirth, residing in the divine city of Eridu. One day, they engage in a contest to see who can create the most impressive beings. Ninmah starts by shaping a being out of clay, but this creature has no limbs and cannot move or speak. Enki accepts the challenge and adds his touch by giving the being the ability to move and speak, thus bringing it to life. Ninmah is impressed but undeterred, and she creates another being, this time with no reproductive organs. Enki once again intervenes, granting the being the ability to procreate. The contest continues, with Enki and Ninmah creating increasingly complex beings, each with its own unique characteristics. They create beings with different physical attributes, abilities, and limitations, showcasing their creativity and ingenuity. Finally, they decide to collaborate on their ultimate creation, humans. Mixing clay with the blood of a slain god and the flesh of a god who volunteered to sacrifice himself, they fashion humans. These humans are endowed with intelligence, speech, and emotions, making them the most remarkable creation yet. However, the myth doesn't end with the creation of humans. It goes on to explore the interactions between the gods and humans, as well as the consequences of their actions. The tale sheds light on the Sumerian understanding of humanity's origins and the complex relationship between gods and mortals in ancient Mesopotamian mythology. Here's a more detailed telling of the Lugalbanda epic. The Lugalbanda epic begins with the introduction of Lugalbanda, a brave and loyal companion of King Gilgamesh of Uruk. Lugalbanda is depicted as a skilled warrior and a devoted servant of the gods. The narrative follows Lugalbanda and Gilgamesh on various adventures, including battles against monsters and quests for glory. Despite his prowess in battle, Lugalbanda is also known for his humility and piety, often seeking guidance and protection from the gods. One of the central episodes of the epic involves Lugalbanda falling ill during a military campaign with Gilgamesh. Unable to continue, Lugalbanda is left behind in the wilderness, where he prays fervently to the goddess Inanna for help. Inanna hears Lugalbanda's prayers and sends her divine servant, the eagle Anza, to rescue him. Anza carries Lugalbanda on his back and flies him to safety, where he is healed and restored to health. Grateful for his deliverance, Lugalbanda offers prayers and sacrifices to the gods, expressing his gratitude for their protection and guidance. He vows to serve the gods faithfully and to continue to uphold their honor and worship. Throughout the epic, Lugalbanda's adventures demonstrate his courage, resourcefulness, and devotion to the divine. He serves as a model of heroism and piety, embodying the ideals of loyalty, humility, and faithfulness in the face of adversity. The Lugalbanda epic serves as both a heroic tale and a religious allegory, highlighting the importance of divine intervention and devotion in the lives of mortals. It celebrates the triumph of the human spirit and the enduring power of faith in the divine. The Descent of Inanna is a Sumerian myth that recounts the journey of the goddess Inanna, also known as Ishtar, into the underworld. It is one of the oldest recorded myths, dating back to the 3rd millennium BCE. In the myth, Inanna decides to visit the underworld, ruled by her sister Ereshkigal, the queen of the dead. Inanna prepares for her descent by donning her royal garments and jewelry, but before leaving, she instructs her faithful servant Ninshubur to seek help from the other gods if she does not return. As Inanna descends into the underworld, she passes through 7 gates, at each of which she is required to remove an article of clothing or jewelry, symbolizing her relinquishment of her powers and identity. Finally, she arrives naked and vulnerable before Ereshkigal. Ereshkigal is enraged by Inanna's intrusion and orders her servant, the Anuna, to judge Inanna and punish her for her audacity. Inanna is condemned to death and hung on a hook like a piece of meat. Meanwhile, Ninshubur, Inanna's loyal servant, follows her instructions and seeks help from the other gods. Enki, the god of wisdom, creates 2 creatures from the dirt under his fingernails and sends them to rescue Inanna. The creatures journey to the underworld and sympathize with Inanna's plight. They offer Ereshkigal a gift of sympathy and compassion, which softens her heart. Ereshkigal agrees to release Inanna but demands a substitute to take her place in the underworld. Inanna is revived and allowed to return to the world of the living, but she must find someone to take her place in the underworld. As she ascends through the 7 gates, she encounters various individuals who mourn her absence, including her husband Dumuzid. In the end, Dumuzid agrees to spend half the year in the underworld, thus allowing Inanna to return to the world of the living. The Descent of Inanna is a complex myth that explores themes of death, rebirth, sacrifice, and the cycles of nature. It is often interpreted as an allegory for the changing seasons and the eternal cycle of life, death, and renewal. Era and Isham is a Babylonian myth that centers around the gods Era and Isham and their roles in warfare, justice, and the balance of power in the divine realm. The myth is preserved on cuneiform tablets dating back to the 2nd millennium BCE. In the myth, Era is a fierce and destructive god associated with war, pestilence, and chaos. He is often depicted as a violent and unpredictable deity who brings devastation to both gods and humans alike. Isham, on the other hand, is a god of justice and righteousness, known for his fairness and integrity. The narrative begins with Era becoming disillusioned with the state of the world and the behavior of the other gods. He feels that they have become complacent and neglectful of their duties, allowing injustice and corruption to run rampant. In his anger, Era decides to unleash his destructive powers upon the world, intending to bring about chaos and destruction. However, Isham intervenes and attempts to reason with Era, urging him to reconsider his actions and to uphold the principles of justice and order. Despite Isham's efforts, Era remains determined to carry out his plan, leading to a conflict between the two gods. The myth culminates in a dramatic showdown between Era and Isham, with Isham ultimately prevailing and convincing Era to relent. Through their conflict and reconciliation, the myth explores themes of power, justice, and the balance between chaos and order. It serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked aggression and the importance of upholding moral principles, even in the face of adversity. Ninurta's return to Nippur is a Sumerian myth that revolves around the god Ninurta and his battle against demons to reclaim the sacred city of Nippur. The myth is recorded on cuneiform tablets dating back to the 2nd millennium BCE. In the myth, the city of Nippur, a sacred center of worship, falls under the control of demonic forces led by the demon Asog. Asog is a fearsome creature, described as a monstrous being with a body covered in sharp stones and teeth. The people of Nippur suffer under the tyranny of Asog and his minions, who bring chaos and destruction to the land. In desperation, they turn to Ninurta, the god of war and agriculture, for help. Ninurta heeds the call and sets out on a quest to defeat Asog and liberate Nippur from his grip. Armed with his mighty weapons, including his magical mace Sharur and his bow and arrows, Ninurta confronts the demon and his army in a fierce battle. Despite the ferocity of the demons, Ninurta proves to be a formidable opponent, using his cunning and strength to outsmart and overpower them. In a climactic showdown, Ninurta faces Asog himself and emerges victorious, vanquishing the demon and restoring peace to Nippur. Ninurta's triumph is celebrated by the people of Nippur, who honor him as their savior and protector. The myth underscores the importance of courage, perseverance, and divine intervention in the face of adversity, as well as the enduring struggle between good and evil in the cosmic order. Ar and the Lord of Aratta is a Sumerian myth that explores the rivalry between the cities of Uruk and Aratta and their struggle for supremacy. The myth is recorded on cuneiform tablets dating back to the early 2nd millennium BCE. In the myth, Enmerkar, the king of Uruk, seeks to assert his dominance over the neighboring city-state of Aratta. He desires to bring the valuable resources and riches of Aratta under his control, but the people of Aratta are proud and refuse to submit to Uruk's rule. Enmerkar devises a plan to intimidate the people of Aratta and force them to acknowledge his authority. He sends a messenger to the Lord of Aratta, demanding tribute and submission. However, the Lord of Aratta defiantly rejects Enmerkar's demands, leading to a standoff between the two cities. Undeterred, Enmerkar decides to use cunning and deception to achieve his goals. He sends a series of envoys to Aratta, each one bearing increasingly extravagant gifts and promises of friendship. However, the Lord of Aratta remains suspicious and refuses to be swayed by Enmerkar's overtures. In a final attempt to gain the upper hand, Enmerkar enlists the help of the goddess Inanna, promising her lavish offerings and devotion in exchange for her assistance. Inanna agrees to aid Enmerkar and uses her divine powers to bring about the downfall of Aratta. With Inanna's support, Enmerkar's forces lay siege to Aratta and emerge victorious, bringing the city under Uruk's control. The myth concludes with Enmerkar celebrating his triumph and establishing Uruk as the dominant power in the region. Enmerkar and the Lord of Aratta highlights themes of power, ambition, diplomacy, and the use of both force and cunning in political struggles. It also reflects the geopolitical tensions and rivalries that characterized ancient Mesopotamian society. The debate between sheep and grain is a Sumerian literary text that explores the importance of agriculture and domestication in ancient society. While not directly related to scriptures in the traditional sense, it provides valuable insights into the cultural and economic practices of the time. The text is preserved on cuneiform tablets dating back to the early 2nd millennium BCE. In the debate, two entities, representing sheep and grain, argue over which is more beneficial to humanity. The grain argues that it is essential for sustaining life, providing nourishment and sustenance to humans and animals alike. It emphasizes the importance of agriculture and cultivation in ensuring food security and prosperity. On the other hand, the sheep counters that it is equally indispensable, as it provides wool for clothing, milk for nourishment, and meat for sustenance. The sheep argues that it is a symbol of wealth and prosperity, capable of multiplying and sustaining human populations. The debate between sheep and grain reflects the symbiotic relationship between humans and domesticated animals and plants in ancient Mesopotamian society. It underscores the centrality of agriculture and animal husbandry to the economy and social fabric of the time. While the text may not be directly religious in nature, it provides valuable insights into the cultural and economic values of ancient Mesopotamia, shedding light on the ways in which ancient societies conceptualized their relationship with the natural world and the sources of their sustenance. The end.